Awesome. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday. We're already halfway through all of March, which is pretty crazy. Happy belated Pie Day, which was yesterday. I hope everybody had some pie, or at least made a circle of some sort, or something with a circumference. But I just wanted to welcome everybody into the circle today. My name is Chantel, for those of you who have never joined me before. I am Cree, Anishinaabe, and Métis from Muskeg Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. And I'm just really thankful and humbled to be able to share in this format. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that I do not live on my reserve. I actually live here in Mohkinstsis, and Mohkinstsis is the home of the Treaty 7 people. It's home of the Blackfoot, of Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani, also known as the Niitsitapi, the Sarsidane, also known as the Tsuut'ina, from Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda from Morley, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. We're also walking in the footsteps of Métis Region 3, which is why I proudly wear my Métis sash, which this particular Métis sash I received from a Blackfoot elder from Siksika, and I was very, very thankful for this. But I act as that bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, and I'm really thankful for the role that I play in bridging those lines of communication with elders and with community members and with allies and for people who are learning. Because I think you need to be very, very gentle to be able to teach, especially some really, really hard lessons. And so I wanted to welcome everyone into the circle today by sharing the Cree welcome song. I've been sharing the Cree welcome song for years, and every time I do it, it puts me in a good place. It puts me exactly where I need to be. It brings in my ancestors to stand beside me, and it brings everyone else's ancestors into the circle. When I sing it in rounds of in three, as opposed to rounds of four for all of our other songs to represent the four directions of the medicine wheel. This is rounds of three to keep the circle open and welcoming so everyone completes the circle today. Because in a circle, we're all connected. There's no beginning, there's no end. No one is greater or less than anyone else in the circle, just like in the Hoop of Life. So it teaches us to honor each other for those differences. Because if we were all exactly the same, the world would be incredibly boring and nothing would ever get done. So we need those differences to be able to, honor each other and welcome each other into the circle in a good way. Mia Sin, which is the Cree welcome song, is from the Natahau family from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, and I thank that family for keeping this song alive. And I'm just so thankful to so many of our families and our knowledge keepers and our elders who have kept those teachings alive, who have kept those stories and those songs and the traditional ways of knowing and being alive, because for so many years we weren't able to share those things, but now we are, and I'm so thankful for families like the Natahau family for being able to preserve those teachings for us to share them with our future generations. Mia Sin, which is the Cree welcome song, it welcomes everyone into the circle. It teaches us to come into the circle without judgment, to never compare ourselves to others because we're on completely different journeys than they are, but to really embrace all of the beauty that surrounds us, embrace everyone for their diversity and uniqueness and just their incredible ability to share within community. Mia Sin, it doesn't just mean welcome, it also means beautiful. To sing. Ooh. Mia Sin, Mia Sin, Asemina, Asemina, Epetakote, Wagomagan, Hota, Homa, Itaskino, Miasin, Miasen, Asemina, Asemina, Epetakote, Wagomagan, Hota, Homa, Itaskino, Miasin, Miasen asemina asemina e petakote wagomagan ota oma itaskino. Hi, and welcome to the circle today. I'm just really thankful and humbled to be here. And I had a friend actually send me a message the other day to ask me if I knew any stories about little people, or and I know a couple that elders have shared with me. So here in Blackfoot territory, I was shared with actually a couple different elders. They talked about how the little people who used to bring tobacco, and the reason tobacco doesn't grow on the land anymore, or at least as much as it used to, is because the little people aren't tending our gardens anymore. We don't have that relationship with the little people, and as such, they've taken those plants with them. One elder said she remembers being really, really little and working with her grandmother and making teeny tiny moccasins. And then they would make bannock, and they would put those teeny tiny moccasins out with some bannock, a little bit of jam. Sometimes if they had a little bit of syrup, they would put that in a thimble and they would put it out there outside on a stone just outside their door. And in the mornings, when they would come out, there would be some tobacco plants there for them. And they would be able to replant them. So they did that right at the beginning of spring. And that's when they would get those tobacco plants and they would be able to cultivate them. But no one could really explain how those tobacco plants ended up on the doorstep. There was also another teaching from another elder who was from Magani, and she said she remembers as a kid having holes in her moccasin, and her kukum, or sorry, her, I don't know how to say, grandma in Blackfoot, I had to figure that out, but kukum in Cree said completely replaced. And she was amazed. She said, she ran and she's like, they fixed them, they fixed my moccasins. So she remembers those stories growing up. She remembers those stories of little people who would help, those stories of the little people who you would make offerings to and they would bring return. But it was really about honoring the relationship that we have with those spirits. Even in Cherokee, I know they had stories of the little. So Cherokee legend is when Cherokee used to always live by the Great Lakes, but as they came further and further and further inland and ended up at Ohio, could be wrong, but that particular area by the mountains and by the forests, that it was unfamiliar territory for them, and they said that there were little people who guided them and showed them how to cultivate the land because they had never cultivated land like this before. And they didn't just call them little people, they actually called them moon people because they said they did all of their gardening under the light of the moon. And so many of the plants that we would cultivate, often we would do it at dusk, and we would cultivate the land or the Cherokee would cultivate the land that way, because those are the teachings of the moon people or the little people, is to always plant and cultivate and pull your weeds and everything like that at night, so that with the morning light, all of those nutrients, all of the sun, like the grandfather's sun, will nurture that earth. I wish I knew more of these legends because I think they're really interesting. And I find it really cool that they coincide with a lot of legends from, well, I know that there are little people legends, of course, like the leprechauns and the fairies of Celtic mythology, Celtic lore, whether it be from Scotland or whether it be from Ireland or even Wales. They have stories of the little people. And oftentimes it's very much the same. Sometimes they were troublemakers where they would cause a lot of issues, and if you disrespected them, they would just make your life really terrible. And the only way to make amends or make reparation was to give something back. So it's interesting that we have those same elements completely across the pond from each other and worlds away. But we still have those legends and those stories of little people, of being able to gift something to make your life better, or to be able to build a relationship and cultivate a relationship like that. And so it's really beautiful that we have those traditional teachings and legends and stories, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about them. Because of course, once I learn something and I'm able to carry it, I love to share. because I think this is information that is just, it connects each and every one of us, because we all have stories like that. We all have those similar connections to the earth in some way, shape, or form. And it's not about right or wrong. It's just about different ways of looking at the world. And we never know what's really going to enrich our lives. And so it's such a gift to be able to do that. And so I wanted to just share, I think I'm going to share the Wendy-Aho popped into my head. So I'm going to share Wendy-Aho, which is the Four Directions song, and really honor the little people today. I want to honor the little people of all four directions. You know, there are African legends of little people, tiny people that would live with the different animals. When it was time for a hunt, they would tell which hunters to, like which animals the hunters should hunt. And so they would mark them with red ochre. And it's funny because we have red ochre here too, and we use it for ceremonies, for painting our faces. But there they would use it for marking their game or for marking their animals before the hunt. And so it's interesting that they had that little people legend, but it was like the little people were picking and choosing and telling them, these are the animals that you need, because they're not going to make any more babies. But just to keep that balance in the earth, because they were connected to the animals, they had conversations with the animals to be able to help cultivate those animals for future generations. And unfortunately, we forgot to listen to those little people. We forgot to listen to those spirits, and now our world is completely off balance. Perhaps the little people are waiting underground for us to remember the connection that we have to the earth, and remember the connection that we have to them, and those stories that we need to share together. As this isn't just our world, it's everyone's. This is the world of the two-leggeds, which is us, but also little people. The world of the fish, the world of the flyers and the crawlers and the four-leggeds, slitherers, all of those, the creepy crawlies, everyone is connected to this land world. And it's very short-sighted to think we can't learn each and every one of those creatures, because they have gifts and stories for us. And so when we sing this song, Four Directions song, I want to honor all of those, all of our relations. When we say all my relations, it means everything living and breathing and thriving on this earth. Also the stones and the earth itself, because there is a pulse and all of those things. This song was from Robbie Robertson and Ulali, I believe. They brought it forth, and I learned it as the Four Directions song, or the Four Winds song, because you can hear the winds going in each direction, and so you hear the sun going in each direction. It's also known as the Cherokee morning song, because of course the sun rises in the east, its journey. And so yeah, this is Wendy-Aho, Four Directions, Cherokee morning song, or the Four Winds song. Right over my bag. And that was my phone, so I am going to shut it off. I can't believe I left it on. Usually I shut it off for these. Everybody makes mistakes. We're not perfect. Good. Awesome. So the next, actually, I've been thinking about the story that my great aunt had put, and I remember her telling me as a child this story. And so this is called, it's about a little boy, and this little boy used to live with his cook and his grandmother. And he was a phenomenal tracker. He was a phenomenal trapper as well as a tracker. So he could pretty much tell the size of an animal. He could be able to track it to know if it was injured or not, to know how big it was, how much it would weigh, if it was male or female. He could always track and tell whatever an animal was just by the track alone, and he would be able to trap it. He was incredible at making and weaving together incredible snares. They were always really, really strong, even though he was just using different kinds of roots and different kinds of grasses and leaves and branches. He made it so strong it almost felt like steel nowadays, which was really, really incredible. So he had an incredible talent for that. And because he lived with his grandmother, they were always really well fed, whether it be with a rabbit or whether it be if he'd snared a moose and he knew how to bring it back to his village. And so his village was always really well fed as well. And so one day he was wandering further and further and further out into the forest, just curious as to what other animals were wandering around. And he found this huge track. It was bigger than any track he'd ever seen before. And he was looking at it and observing it and wondering what animal made this track. He'd never seen anything this big before. The edges of it almost seemed burned. They were black, and he thought, okay, well, maybe it has black fur. Maybe it's dragging that fur along to create that blackness, and it's topping everything down. So he thought, maybe it's a bear. No, it was too big to be a bear. It was too round and bottomed out a little. And so he thought, maybe, just to take a look at it, not to catch it, but he could catch it just to see what it was. And so he made a plan. He knew exactly the size of snare he needed because, of course, he was an expert tracker and an expert trapper, so he knew exactly how big to make it. And so it took him 4 days and 4 nights weaving nonstop to finally create the perfect snare for whatever was leaving this path in the forest. And it had burned all through the trees. Well, maybe it's something with wings. And his imagination was just going crazy trying to figure out what this creature was. And so finally, on that 4th day and 4th night, he finished that snare. It was the strongest and most beautiful snare he'd ever made. He was so excited to find what that animal was. And so his grandmother had watched him over the last few days making this snare. She said, "Grandson, what are you trying to catch?" And he's like, "I'm not sure, Cookin. There's something large. I'm not quite sure what animal it is, but it's leaving this consistent track through the forest, and I want to see what it is. I want to catch it. I'll let it go, Cookin, but I just want to see what it is." And so she said, "All right, grandson, but never leave that snare unattended. You always want to watch to make sure that whatever that animal is, you catch it and release it right away so it doesn't suffer." And he said, of course, Cookin. He knew better than to leave his snares unattended. And so first thing that morning, he packed up a lunch and he walked all the way to that spot. Day's light, he put that snare out and he waited. He waited and he waited. It was getting really boring because he was waiting forever. And that animal never came. He was wondering, that animal, maybe it only came out at night. Maybe it came out first thing in the morning. He wasn't quite sure. And so he ate his lunch and he waited longer and longer and longer. But he realized, it's getting really, really late. So he caught a quick rabbit and brought it home for some stew. His cook made wonderful rabbit stew that evening, and the little boy ate it quickly, asleep, determined to go and find out whatever he caught. Hopefully that whatever that creature was came out. And so he had a wonderful sleep with really intense dreams. And then he woke up feeling refreshed, but it was dark. The whole village was really confused because they all felt very well rested as well. They felt like they slept in, but it was still dark. And then grandmother, Cookum, looked at her grandson. "Astum no sims." "Yes, Cookum?" "No sims. You leave out a snare last night." "Oh, Cookum, I did leave out a snare last night." "Sims, do you know what you caught?" I said, "No, Cookum, I don't know what I caught." Well, you better go find that snare and bring one of your sharpest hunting knives and cut whatever you caught loose. Something is very wrong in the earth. And he knew that his Kokum was right. She was so wise, and so he grabbed the sharpest knife that he had. He even grabbed a whetstone so he could sharpen it along the way, but it was so dark. And so he also grabbed a torch, and he started walking through the forest. It was so dark, and the animals who were normally up at night were flying around, and the animals who were normally up during the day were looking really confused and bumping into things because they couldn't see anything. And by the time he started creeping towards where that snare was, it started getting brighter and brighter and hotter till he squinted his eyes into the brightness and he realized, caught the sun. Oh no, he felt horrible and he thought, oh no, I'm gonna have to cut the sun loose. So he tried to get closer and closer and closer and tried to cut it away, but the snare was too strong and the sun was too bright. He couldn't even see what he was doing and he didn't want to hurt the sun. And it was just too strong. He couldn't cut through it, no matter how sharp his knife was. He even sharpened it a few times with his whetstone and it didn't matter. He couldn't cut through it. And so he said, well, I'll have to ask the animals. So he asked all of the animals from far and wide, the daytime animals, to see if they could help him. And the beaver tried, but all she did was burn her tail. Now she had a very crispy tail. And then the bear said, well, I have very sharp claws. Let me try. And so the bear reached forward and was clawing and tearing at that beautiful snare. But all of the bear's paws, who were once furry, got singed. Now all he has is bare paws. Sorry, I had to. And then the wolf tried the same, trying to scratch at it, and burnt all the hair off its paws too. Many of the animals with claws tried, and each one of them burnt all of the hair off the bottom of their feet and the bottom of their paws, leaving them with very bare. And all of the animals tried and failed. Even the birds tried to get towards it, and the chickadee ended up singeing the top of its head, leaving nothing but a black cap. The raven had already learned its lesson from flying into the sun one time and decided to just avoid it. But the crow, who was white at the time, was very determined to prove that he could do it. And so all of the crows together started pecking away, but they could not get through the snare, and no one could set the sun free. And all of the animals thought that there was no hope. There was no way. And the little boy started to feel terrible. He thought, isn't there anyone or anything that can get through that snare? And then there was a teeny tiny little voice saying, I can probably get through the snare. And the little boy looked around and he saw a teeny tiny little mouse. She was very small and very white, with the biggest, brightest white smile anyone had ever seen. It gleamed like the sun itself. And she said, I can try. I have very sharp teeth and I'm very good at chewing. And so all of the animals and the little boy said, oh yes, please, Mrs. Mouse, you're our last hope. And so very cautiously, the little mouse squinted her way. The sun was so bright, her eyes went completely black. And she continued up the side of the snare until she found the weakest point in the snare, exactly the spot where it would loosen it. And as she chewed and chewed and chewed, her fur got singed and singed and singed until it turned this beautiful brown color, that mousy brown. And finally, there was a loud snap, and the sun was released. The snare flew back, and the mouse was thrown. Luckily, that little boy was able to catch the mouse in the sky, and that beautiful sun tore off into the sky and refused to ever touch the earth again. From that point on, the sun always stayed on the horizon, just out of reach, would never touch the planet. That little mouse, everyone was so thankful for. She turned around with that beautiful, bright smile and smiled even wider, and she said, you're very welcome, no problem. But her teeth were completely burned. And that is now why the mouse has brown teeth. And so that is the story of how the mouse brought in his brown teeth. And so I wanted to share the song that I wrote, which is called the Ancestral Bird Song. To me, it reminds me of the blue jay. Because the blue jay has this innate ability, it can actually speak to other birds. It knows how to change its voice to be able to converse with other birds, which is really useful because sometimes it will adopt other birds that have been orphaned, and it will remain and it'll keep that voice of whatever bird was raising with. So it's really just a beautiful gift, but it teaches us that our voices are important. Our voices are the way our ancestors, our languages are important, but also our connection to the voices of our ancestors, which are the birds. The birds are our ancestral voices. The winds, the ways that the trees rustle, all of those sounds are the voices of our ancestors, echoed throughout many ages. And we're listening to the same sounds that we have been thousands and thousands of years. And so this song is really that gift of connecting to all of our voices, to honoring all of our ancestors that have brought us here together to this day. All of the sacrifices that they've had to make to be able to get us to where it teaches us to really honor those things, both the good and the bad, that have led us and shaped us and molded us into the people that. So yeah, this is the Ancestral Bird Song, also known as the Blue Jay Song, which I created for Wild Constructs, which was a beautiful experience where we went into the weasel head, really honored the land. Every time I was on the land, I would hear these different birds singing or speaking. Every season, still that sense of belonging. So that's really what it is, that all of us belong in this. All of our ancestors have led us here for to really honor that purpose. Ancestral. I think today I'm going to share the water song, because, well, it's almost springtime, hopefully, fingers crossed, but it's that water coming back to the earth, it's that healing coming back to the earth. I want to kind of preemptively honor the water and the water spirits that guide us, that nurture the earth. Hopefully we won't have as much drought this year. For that last year we really struggled, and seeing that reflected in people who are slipping through the cracks. And so it's really about asking the earth for what we need, remembering to give back to the earth, remembering to honor the relationship that we have with the earth. So yeah, water song. And in it you might hear the rain coming down, and then the thunder and the lightning. You might hear the river flowing with the rapids, and then eventually that big waterfall, or you might hear the ocean rocking back and forth. But no matter what, it teaches us about that nurturing and that life-giving power of water, but also the power of water within us, which is our emotions. Because without them, we wouldn't be here. We need them for strong families and strong relationships and strong friendships. Oh, hi, Mira. I haven't seen you in forever. But it's really about honoring those relationships, cultivating those relationships, and honoring your tears as they come, because it shows that you are actually invested. You're invested in another person, and your emotions are never something to be ashamed of. They're something to be embraced and loved and celebrated. So this is water song. We start gently, and we build and we build and we build and we build until we go a little crazy, and then we just ebb and flow. So we slow down at the end. Wishita do-ya, do-ya, do-ya. Wishita do-ya, do-ya, day. 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 Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey. 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 Wishita do-ya, do-ya, do-ya. Wishita do-ya, do-ya, day. 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 Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey. 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 Wishita do-ya, do-ya, do-ya. Wishita do-ya, do-ya, day. 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 Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya, hey. Wishita do-ya, do-ya, do-ya. Wishita do-ya, do-ya, day. 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 Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishat-neya, hey-ya. Wishita do ya day. Wishita do ya Wishita do ya day. And now we're doing a song. So, I love it when we sing that together because that's one of those songs that you don't have to be on beat, and it sounds amazing because it sounds like an incredible storm or river or like the ocean crashing. It's amazing. That's that really fun, comfortable chaos. That's what I call that song. And kids love it because you get to go faster and faster and faster and go a little crazy. Totally dig it. Oh, who am I getting? Grown-ups love it too. So the next song, actually I wanted to talk a little bit about the song. I've been thinking a lot about the bear because the bear is getting close to waking up, shaking off, those cobwebs, getting out into the world, and, starting to just replenish itself, and start new life. Woo! My goodness. So the bear, it teaches us so much about ourselves. It teaches us, how to stand strong and how to stand tall. I think a lot of people have this misinterpretation of the bear. They're like, oh, the bear is my spirit animal because I'm strong. And I'm like, no. Bear is more than strength, it's community. It is the courage to stand up for what's right in your community. It's the courage to be yourself. And people who are courageous enough to let other people be themselves as well. That's truly what the bear spirit is. It's really about embracing everyone in your community and embracing who you are. Because the bear knows it can only be the bear. It can't be a bird because gravity works and that would be hilarious. It can't be a fish because it would just flop around and get soggy. But it can only be the bear, and it knows that, and it teaches us we can only be ourselves, which is such a scary thing at times, and this is why it takes a lot of courage to do that. This song also, it teaches us about how we would watch the bear. We always knew what to eat and when to eat it because of the bear. We would know when the berries were ripe. We would know what berries to eat and what berries not to eat, especially around the seasons. We would know, no berries this year, but there was an abundance of roots, so we would end up eating those things because we would follow the bear and what it was doing. It was like our brother. We would be able to watch it. In fact, the Blackfoot consider the bear like their family. And also the bear knows what not to eat. And so if the bear wasn't eating elk one year, we knew don't eat the elk. Or if it was only eating elk, avoid the other animals and only eat elk. So it tells us what's in abundance and what's not. It also tells us if there's something wrong in the environment. So out west with the pine beetles, the bears are actually chewing and clawing and ripping pods of pine beetles off the trees, trying to eat the pine beetles so that they stop destroying the trees. But obviously there's a lot of beetles that are bears, but they're warning us like these beetles are a problem, we need to get rid of them. And we need to pay attention to the bear because it's always that harbinger. It knows what's happening. It's like that canary in the coal mine, but that. And even in Williams Lake a few years ago, so Williams Lake is like half tourist trap and then the other half is reserve, and people will go there to fish because it's like incredible fishing. It's got like perch and mackerel and it's got lots of salmon, so of course you'd go there to go fishing. And one year the bear, who would normally eat all those fish, just stopped eating the fish completely. And the First Nations people who watched the bear were like, wow, the bear aren't eating the fish. Don't touch the fish. There's something going on. There's something wrong with the fish. And so they tried to warn everybody in the nation, like, don't eat the fish. And so the First Nations people stopped eating the fish, but they tried to warn everybody in the town, like the vacation town, like, don't eat the fish. There's something very wrong. But most of the people are like, no, we're here to go fishing. I'm sure it's fine. And let's just say they had a pretty awful vacation because most of it was spent on the toilet. And when scientists came in to figure out why everybody was getting ill, they tested the water, and the water was fine. But then, they tested the fish, and then they found a microorganism. I can't even talk today. Organism in the fish that was actually making all of the fish sick, which was in turn making everybody else sick who ate the fish. So the bear knew it. They didn't touch the fish. First Nations people who watched the bear knew it. They didn't touch the fish. And nobody else got the memo and had a pretty awful vacation. But even here in Alberta, some of you might remember this, there were those, about 13 years ago, there was about 60 hungry wolves just dropped off from our lovely American friends in the middle of Banff National Park, thinking, meh, Banff is huge. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's a huge ecosystem. There's going to be no damage. But the wolves started to take a literal bite out of the population of the deer, elk, moose, and the bighorn sheep, and started to really cause problems in the ecosystem. And the bear, who would eat those animals, saw that these wolves were causing a problem, and they knew they had to step up and do something. So instead of eating the game, they started to eat the wolves. And by the bears eating wolves, not only were they sustaining themselves, but they were protecting those other animals for them. And I think the coolest part of the whole study was the bear were only eating the wolves that didn't belong there. We're only eating the American wolves. I mean, they were American, so they might have been like extra salty or dipped in sugar and rolled in flour. I don't know. Maybe deep fried. I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. But it was amazing how they knew how to bring balance back into the world. And so it teaches us that we know those things that we need to do to bring balance back to our communities, whether it be a community cleanup, whether it be gifting to someone who might be suffering, whether it be giving back to the earth, whether it be sharing your gifts. We have those innate abilities, and we just have to have the strength and the courage to give back, way to be ourselves, to give back. And so this is what the bear teaches us. It also teaches us timing, because it always knows when to go to sleep and when to wake up. That's what hibernation is all about. And so we would always watch the bear to know when it's ready for hibernation. So if the bear was really, really, really fat, we knew, it's going to be a really long, cold winter, so stock up, kids, and pull the parkas out of storage, because it's going to be cold. Or if he was not so fat, you knew there's going to be a lot of Chinooks this year. It wasn't going to be quite as cold as it had been in previous years, and so you would prepare accordingly. And still now, whenever I do fasts in the fall, I always watch the bear. Although this year was really weird because the bears were still out and about, and they were acting like it was still the middle of summer. And so that made me worry a lot. But, because they have so much wisdom, and they're trying to warn us that just by their behavior. So it's amazing that the bear will teach us those things. And so this song is the bear song. It's an Anishinaabe song. And there's many different versions of it, and I sing the community/children version of it. It's about honoring that bear spirit in each and every one of us. So I've had the laughing song in my head all day today. I had to like take a moment. I was working with little kids today all day, and so there were some moments that just made me laugh out loud, and I just love that. I love that about kids, that they just are like no holds barred. They will just tell you exactly what they were thinking, and they'll just ask you random questions out of nowhere, like, what's your favorite animal? Like, my cat. This is why I don't make too much money on him. But yeah, it's really just beautiful. And I was just thinking of how much joy I get when I teach, just how much laughter there is. So I'm really, really thankful. And I tell really bad jokes. I mean, cute jokes. Like, what did the mama buffalo say to the baby buffalo on his first day of school? Hi, son. Okay, sorry. It's funny. I think it's cute. But kids are always like, what? And then sometimes I have to explain it, which just makes me laugh harder. So another word for a buffalo is a bison. Oh, okay, then they get it. So. But this song is from the Four Winds Singers. They're out of Edmonton. I believe they're from Enoch. Don't quote me on that, though. I'm going to have to look it up. But yeah, I'm just really thankful for this song. It does make me laugh, especially because I always mess it up. But it's just really about honoring that joy and that laughter, not taking yourself too serious, because life is just too short to be serious all the time. So this is the Cree laughing song, or the happy song. Awesome. I'm going to share two more songs and I'm going to take off. The first one that I'd like to share is a thank you song. I'm just really, really thankful to be where I am. And I was really reflecting on just all of the moments that have brought me here, both the good and the bad, to really honor and be grateful of the path that I walk, and to really take that responsibility with grace, ability, and gratitude, and really in line with this, to really be honest, truthful with all of those experiences and how they've shaped and molded me, and just that wisdom to be able to walk this path in a good way. I'm just really thankful and humbled when I was teaching a thank you song. And so this is The Miigwech song, or the thank you song, this is a song. A little bit of OG and a little bit of Cree in there. And so it's just really about our ancestors, like our grandfathers and our grandmothers, and all of our ancestors, our future and our past generation brought us to where we are now, and that path that we have together living in. So the thank you song. And I know that once I sing this song, I won't be able to find the traveling song because it's so catchy. Miigwech na gal ma ho na sak, Miigwech na gal ma no koma sak, Miigwech na gal hey hey nak nak, oh hey oh hey oh hey, oh hey 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 oh hey oh hey. Miigwech na gal ma ho na sak, Miigwech na gal ma no kama sak, Miigwech na gal hey hey nak nak, oh hey oh hey oh hey, oh hey 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 oh hey oh hey. Miigwech na gal ma ho na sak, Miigwech na gal ma no kama sak, Miigwech na gal hey hey nak nak, oh hey oh hey oh hey, oh hey 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 oh hey oh hey. Miigwech na gal ma ho na sak, Miigwech na gal ma no kama sak, Miigwech na gal hey hey nak nak, oh hey oh hey oh hey, oh hey 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 oh hey oh hey. Awesome. So now, oh yeah, I did sing this song at your school, so Miigwech. And this is the last one I'm going to share. This is always the song that I close with, either this one or the Thunderbird song. So the Thunderbird was my closing originally before this song came back. So I would say that if you're on the right path, those things will come back to you. So I'd learned this originally from my elder, Sharon Pruter, and I was so thankful. When she passed, it was really, really difficult because this song and a few other songs had just left. And I felt that was probably part of my grief, and just probably part that I never got to sit with her as much as I would have wanted to learn the songs fully. But she was on my mind and in my heart, and I was part of this project where I was connecting people from out of town with elders here, because they were here doing just a show, and they were like, hey, you're a drummer, you're a singer. I'm like, yes, absolutely. And they said, hey, can you help us, share this song? We'll teach it to you. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then they started singing it, and I started to cry. And they're like, you okay? Like, I know this song. This was my elder song. So humbled and thankful that it came. So I actually for bringing that. And elder Karen Pruter for gifting that time with me while she was, and is the traveling song, which is us that all roads will exactly where we need them. It's about the journey, not the destination. It's about learning from all of those people that cross your path and creating community and wherever you can. That's truly what helps us to thrive and to live and to grow, change the world for the better. So this is the traveling song. All have a beautiful pet. I can remember it. I have the Miigwech song stuck in my head. Told you that would happen. Oh, there we go. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Miigwech. Thank you so much again for joining me for this wonderful Tuesday. I hope you can join me in a few weeks on the 26th. I'll be at the downtown library for Earth Hour. Then there'll be wonderful, wonderful dancers with me, and I'll be just welcoming everybody in, and there's going to be a lot of cool activities, so please do come down if you are in Calgary. And that's the big, new, shiny library downtown, which is so cool that we can gather again. But I'm just really, really thankful to be able to share today. If there's any questions, please do send a message, or I will hopefully see you next week, if not sooner. Miigwech, everyone. Hi, hi. Marcy, and have a beautiful, brilliant week. Hi, hi. Bye, everyone.